Hey there, friends. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Canadian Trucker Convoy and what's going on with the vaccine passport slash digital identification push that's been happening in the West over the last year and a half or so. So, if you haven't heard, there is currently a bunch of truckers in Canada heading to Ottawa. They actually just reached Ottawa today to face Trudeau in light of the recent trucker vaccine mandate that's gone through in Canada. On last Saturday, a law went into effect saying that all Canadian truckers needed to have the vaccine passport. Now, this is specifically important in Canada because when you're going through provincial borders and even, some city borders, they have every Canadian has to download the app on their phones showing their vaccine status. So these truckers wouldn't be able to get through border checkpoints without having this vaccine passport app on their phone that they show to the border crossing, allowing them to go through with their food or their water or their fuel or what have you. So this is not like something where the company might enforce it or might not enforce it, and it goes by whether or not you say, oh yeah, I'm vaccinated, and they're not really worried about the paperwork. This is a hard stop if you want to be a trucker in Canada, that you have to be vaccinated. Now, the Canadian totalitarian regime has been forcing procedures like this onto the population for a long time, specifically getting a lot more extreme in this last few days, last few weeks, pretty much since the beginning of the new year. It got so severe recently that there was talk that you would no longer be able to get into Walmarts or big box stores in Canada without the vaccine pass, and in some provinces you'd actually have to have somebody escort you, a government official escort you, so that they know that you're only buying food or medicine. Now, turns out the straw that broke the Canada camel's back here was the trucker vaccination, and they were the ones who decided to take a stand, all get together, get on their CB radios, and hail each other to go head to Ottawa, see what Trudeau has to say. So initially, a few days ago, the first article that was out on, one of the first articles that was out on this to try and spin it a little bit was to say that there was a trucker convoy heading to Ottawa specifically to protest road conditions. Everybody laughed at that because there is a GoFundMe for this particular trucker convoy, the one that is actually happening, that has been raising millions and millions of dollars. At this point, it's up to, I think, 7.6 million. Prior to when this article went out, I think it was at a couple million, but either way, it was hard to say that there was a separate protest going on at the same time with a bunch of truckers getting together and going to Ottawa. A little fishy. Anyway, since then, it seems like the mainstream media and the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation in general has decided that the best way to face this on is to call them all fascists, because, fascists totally, the people... Okay, I can't even think of a joke for this, because fascism is the merger of public-private partnerships, creating a merger of state and private corporations, so the state can control the private corporations for the good of the nation, is what classical fascism is. So when you're saying that the government, along with the corporation Pfizer, is working together to force everybody to take this therapeutic vaccine, whatever you want to call it, that's the literal definition of fascism. So whatever these people are going by, I'm not 100%. But either way, that's the shtick that they've decided to go with. So on one end of the spectrum, you have people claiming that this has 50,000 trucks. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have people saying, oh, there's only 200-ish trucks. And I just want to state for the record that I think there's a lot more than 200. But let's take a look at Keith Olbermann, for instance. He seems to think that if there were to be only 230 trucks, this wouldn't be a important protest, I think is his point. So in this tweet, he's quoting David Aiken, who says, following from several police sources, there are 8 separate convoy captains, 230 tractor trailers, and 725 personal vehicles from Toronto and Western Canada, 200 vehicles out of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, possibly 2,000 pedestrians from QC, Quebecois, I guess, plus unknown number of other actors. So first off, when he is saying this like there's only 230 trucks, there's a lot more in just this little quote tweet that he's quoting here. But aside from that, I'd like to take a little look at what this looks like from the perspective of somebody who's actually there. So Bernie Spoffworth says, Canada, truckers against medical discrimination. This convoy is now heading to Ottawa and is 70 kilometers long. We stand with you, Canada, and a bunch of hashtags. Let's take a look so that we can actually see what's going on here. Let me get myself out of the way.
Wow, this is a huge, look at they go forever. This is by Atchison outside of Edmonton, heading to Calgary, January 23rd, 2022, convoy. more than
looks a
trucks.
little bit
Lots of
bigger
farms and trucks.
than
Very
230
impressive.
trucks to me, but you
Goes on
can call me
forever.
crazy. I mean, it's an awful lot of, vehicles, if you ask. I don't know. Maybe more than 230. You could call me crazy. Anyways, that's enough of that. The point is made that these people just don't know what they're talking about. But to expand a little bit on it, let's take a look at what happens in Google when you Google for Trucker Convoy Canada. Okay, the very first one. Opinion from the Washington Post. Canada must confront the toxic Freedom Convoy head on. Well, you can see which way the media is trying to spin this, as well as pointing out that Elon Musk, he offered his support by tweeting, which everybody hates Elon Musk if you're woke, so I guess that's the way to plop them out. But in general, it's a pretty negative point. And I gotta say, it's the same for DuckDuckGo, which leads me to believe it's just everybody's writing this way, because DuckDuckGo isn't as... I actually searched for the highway safety article to see if the highway safety article was there. Let's just see if we search for Trucker Convoy Canada, what we see. Don Cherry stands firmly behind. Post-vaccine mandates. Did the Simpsons predict it? I don't stand with selfishness. Trucker Freedom Convoy. Okay. So anyways, it's just generally being spun. The article here, illogical for the truck convoy to claim freedoms threatened by vaccine mandates, say experts. So I just want to take a minute and take a look at this article real quick to just show you how far the subterfuge goes. Thank you, experts, for pointing out that it's illogical for these people to claim their freedoms are threatened. Why? How? Let's expound on this. Let's see, Jason Warwick from 14 hours ago. I have not read this article, so it might not be entertaining. I'm not sure. I just wanted to open it up because the title was so intriguing. So let's see what they're... I want to steelman their point of view and make sure that I understand where they're coming from to make sure that I'm not just giving a ridiculous argument from somebody else's point of view that they might not actually have. So let's take a look at what these people actually think. So Jason Warwick says, truckers already submit to a host of mandatory government safety regulations, from health checks to electronic monitoring of their movements. That's why some experts say it makes no sense for some drivers to claim their freedoms are now at risk from a COVID-19 vaccination added to that long list of job requirements. So, come on, guys, you already have 1,000 different things where the government's tracking you and monitoring you and forcing you to do things that you don't like. Just take this experimental, thing into your body that you can never get rid of even if you get fired 10 hours later. Just do that, guys. A cross-Canada convoy of truckers and their supporters is en route to Ottawa to protest a COVID-19 vaccine mandate that, as of last week, requires Canadian truckers returning to the country to be vaccinated if they want to avoid quarantine and molecular tests. The U.S. has imposed a similar vaccine mandate. Good point. What are our truckers doing, guys? Need to get on that. The convoy does not have the support of the Canadian Trucking Alliance, the Saskatchewan Trucking Association, or other groups. So remember, the government's not okay with this. The convoy is getting attention because the trucks are so large, but it appears to represent only a small minority of Canada's 300,000 long-haul drivers, said Alexander Crizzle, an associate professor and director of the Driving Research and Simulation Laboratory at the University of Saskatchewan. So they were able to find a guy who has a driving simulation laboratory, and he's the one that we need to listen to, not the people who actually sit in trucks all day, the guy with a probably multi-million-dollar driving simulation laboratory. That's who we need to listen to. Vaccination, quote, should be seen as just one more thing, quote, unquote, for drivers, he said. Quote, safety measures don't work unless they're mandatory. All the research proves that, unquote. As an example, Crizzle cited a recent study that found drivers complied far better with rules around hours of work when electronic logbooks were mandatory. Okay, this is an argument that I seem to come up against when it comes to vaccine mandates over and over and over and over again, which is vaccine mandates are effective. Before the vaccine mandate, only 95% of people who are vaccinated. After the vaccine mandate, 100% work. That means vaccine mandates work. End of story. And yeah, nobody's arguing that when you force people to do something, they do it. They're saying you're not supposed to force people to do this. And obviously, in this particular article, the argument is this is in the same class of other things they're being argued to do. Apparently not to the average Canadian truck driver, because somewhere between 230 and 50,000 of them are heading to Ottawa, and I would argue it's significantly closer to 50,000. And if that number is correct, I would just like to point out that if 300,000 That'd mean 1/6 of your people are on the way to Ottawa to complain against this, and I'd say that's kind of a heavier weight than some dude with a driving simulation laboratory in Saskatchewan sitting there with his VR goggles and his vroom vroom all day. As an example, Crizzle said, he says it would be unthinkable to declare brake inspections, load limits, or driver physical exams optional. All of these measures infringe on freedoms, but they're all necessary to ensure the safety of drivers and the public, he said. Okay, so this is the same stupid argument we hear again and again. I'm going to ignore it and move on because I could stick to this for another 15 minutes. So, as this convoy is reaching closer and closer to Ottawa, Canada, how do you think Trudeau, after trying to skip past it and ignore it for so long, has faced it? Well, let's take a look. Here's the man, quote-unquote man himself.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing.
Unacceptable views. So in the liberal democracy that is the beautiful state of Canada, some people just have unacceptable views. What do you do with people with unacceptable views, Trudeau, I wonder? What does somebody do when somebody has unacceptable views? Because that means that there's a group of people that can't think those things. I don't know. Just I'm not as smart as Trudeau, though. Let's continue. Sorry, just had to, put a dot on that.
Do not represent the views of Canadians who have been there for each other, who know that following the science and stepping up to protect each other is the best way to continue to ensure our freedoms, our rights, our values as a country.
And this is kind of something I'd like to strike at the heart of real quick if I could, because it's a trick that they've been using over and over again during this psyop that has been the horrible, horrible pandemic that is COVID-19. They've been doing this over and over and over again, and people haven't been noticing, because these are the people who produce the propaganda. They know that it works, and one very specific way that they've been doing this is the end of his speech there, where he said, "Your freedoms will be protected by Canadians helping each other and getting over this disease." Now, while that's touted in the language of people helping each other, that doesn't have anything to do with freedoms. When you're talking about actual freedoms, those aren't things that can be just given or taken away by government. Those are things that are inalienable. Those are things that they can't take away from you. Now, they can shove those things down. They can not allow you to do those things, but that they don't have the right to do that. It's your right to move around. It's your right to trade with other people. It's not your right to just get a bunch of free shit. But that'll go into a different video about rights. What I mean to say here is that you start with normal life, where you have all your rights and freedoms that you've lived with for all your however many years you've been around. We could talk about how 9/11 kind of limited those freedoms, but either way, prior to COVID, you had these freedoms that we've all been used to. COVID comes. Everybody goes, "Oh no, COVID's here, so we're scared to leave our houses. We're scared to do anything. Oh no, this sucks. We don't have the freedom we once had." While everybody's scared and stuck in their houses and doing this of their own accord, the government comes along and goes, yeah, it really sucks that you guys can't leave your houses, Anyways, we shut down the mall. Nobody should go there. You guys agree. Nobody should go there. So we're just shutting them down for now. And, we're shutting down the bars and the gun stores and places like that, churches, You guys agree we can't go there right now, so obviously we got to shut them down. And then once the COVID, or once the whatever it is, in this case it's COVID, passes, they go, shucks, well, we hate that darn COVID took away your freedoms like that. Isn't that horrible? Well, we can give them back. The good government can work to give your freedoms back. You just got to get this little card. Why aren't these people getting the shot? It gives them their freedom back to get this shot. What's wrong with them? This is what a lot of liberals would refer to as gaslighting. The freedoms didn't just disappear. The right to walk around and go and buy and sell stuff to each other didn't just float away magically, and the government isn't just being like, "This is our way out, guys. Hey, guys, I found a way to get out of this." No, the government is keeping you from doing those things and then presenting you with a solution that not everybody wants to use. So those freedoms that previously applied to every member of society now only apply to the people the government chooses it applies to, which is inherently restricting those freedoms, because freedoms mean the government can't keep you from doing it. Anyways, that's a little bit of a rant for another time. But I just wanted to point that out because people seem to conflate these two things over and over and over again, that the pandemic caused these restrictions, that the pandemic caused these lockdowns, that people getting sick is what's causing all these economic issues, when in reality, the government is doing it and blaming it on the sick people and the unvaccinated. They're saying it's the unvaccinated fault you can't go to the movies, when it's their fault for keeping you from going to the movies. It's giving you an excuse to lash out at somebody who is not them. It's giving you an excuse to fight against people who have no control over whether or not you can go to a movie. Because you know what? If everybody gets vaccinated, all of a sudden it's, now we need everybody to get boosted or else you can't go to the movies. The goalposts will always shift in order to keep you subservient to whatever the government wants to do. And the problem with that is, it doesn't end with COVID. Once you allow one little thing to go and restrict that one little freedom, it doesn't come back. We learned that in 9/11. When 9/11 happened, it was the same thing I described. Prior to 9/11, you go let your kid off at the gate, you come back from the gate, everything's fine. Post 9/11, you got people looking through your shoes and grabbing your balls and touching your tits when you're going through the TSA. And we all just were like, okay, well, terrorism's happening, so we're going to let it go. And it never came back. And in the same way, this will never come back. So, with that said, I'd like to point out that some people don't seem to understand that. Let me just show you what I'm talking about. This is from Michael the Adder. This is a good cartoon for today, January 28th, 2022. This is the fascism supply chain, I guess, because fascism is when trucks... Again, classical fascism is the merging of corporate and public institutes to the lucrative merger of private and public for the benefit of the nation. This is just a bunch of truckers going, I don't want to do what the government tells me to do. This is... I know this point is pedantic and it's probably overdone because, oh, what if the left did it? This is literally anti-fascism. This is them saying, I am against the lucrative merger of private and public. Okay? I don't understand. Fascism isn't just what you don't like, okay? That's like saying, that's exactly when they say that boomers and conservatives go, communism, it's communism when, you know, people help each other. Welfare is communism. This is the same thing, but even more ridiculous because it clearly shows that you don't even get the underlying principle of what fascism is at all. It's just something you don't like and something to make people go, fascists. It's so frustrating, but on top of this kind of a thing, you have Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who put out this tweet today from Mayor Lori Lightfoot at Chicago's mayor. The message is clear. Get vaccinated from the comfort of your home, and this stack could be yours. Dollar bag emoji, dollar stack emoji. Call blah, 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 blah to make an appointment. Hashtag protect Chicago. And the image is of this horrifying figure standing in front of $826 that says get vaxxed. I was forcefully reminded of us, and now I'm sorry for the non-Christians out there, but even for anybody this should be relevant. I was significantly reminded of this story when Jesus went and fasted for 40 days and 40 nights out in the desert, and Satan came to him and he said, all this power I shall give ye if you just bow down and worship me. And for some reason, when I look at this image, I just get that vibe. It's just that, I will give you all of this $826 if you just bow down and do what I tell you. It's a very, look at her eyeball. Look at this creepy little lady. Sorry, that's a bit of an aside as well, but this is a bit of a rant video, so take it or leave it, whatever, you don't like it. But, before you leave, there was one majorly important point that I would like to put on this, and specifically it came to me when I was watching a bit about the trucker convoy on Tucker Carlson. So, real quick, I'd like to skip over to that. It's just about a 30-second video. Don't click off. I'd like you to take a quick look at this for me so that we can have a little bit of a conversation about it. Here you go.
Yes. We want two things. We want to get rid of the vaccine mandates and the passports. And the passports that's a really concerning one. Yesterday, it was my first time ever crossing the border in my truck with my digital passport. And I held my phone up to the border agent to give him the QR code. You know what he said to me? Oh, it's okay, I don't need it. So what do you mean you don't need it? He said, oh, your phone already popped up on my screen and is correlated with your passport. Can you think of that? Can you believe that? So they know everybody who's coming up to the border before they're there, and they're tracking them.
Do you see where I'm heading yet? When I mentioned that the vaccine passport is going to quickly turn into a digital identification purposes entire idea. What people need to recognize is the vaccine passport is not simply a vaccine passport. They are Trojan horsing it in by saying, just keep this card with you so we know you don't have COVID. Now, people go into the whole Robert Malone saying that the vaccine is or isn't effective, and that's not what this is about. Believe me, I have opinions on that, and you can check them out over on my Rumble accounts because they're a little bit spicy. But for the sake of this conversation, it doesn't matter if the vaccines are super amazingly, absolutely perfect or not. So for the sake of YouTube, I would like to say that these vaccines are absolutely perfect. However, when you get this app on your phone in Canada, this app is tracking where you are. If you are going towards a border, the app tells the border guard that you are here, you are getting there in enough time for them to show your ID through to the border onto the other side. Just take that and expand that to its logical conclusion of where the government will go with this. Specifically, the people who are on the left are constantly rattling about the human rights abuses of the military-industrial complex and the militarization of the police and the fact that the government continues to expand its domestic and international spying powers and its terrorism campaign, the Patriot Act. These are things that everybody is constantly complaining about, which is why I don't understand why we can't all just get on the same page. When they ask you to download an app onto your device that confirms whether or not you have a COVID vaccination, well, what can they do beyond that? First, it's for the COVID vaccination. Then all of a sudden, within a few months, it says, ding, ding, actually, we would like you to just put in your social security number so we make sure we can confirm everything. And then, ding, ding, we'd like to, hey, why not just put your credit card information into this? It's just put it all on one thing. Hey, ding, ding, we've invented a new universal Samsung, Apple, iPhone kind of pay thing, and you can use it all with your digital app, your digital vaccine passport app. Ding, ding, why don't you add a picture to this app? Ding, ding, why don't you start doing social media through this app? Eventually, this app will become what WeChat is in China. In China, they have the app called WeChat. I suggest you look into it. It's an app where you can send money, receive money, send messages. It's where they have what's called a hukou, which is their digital identification. It stays on them and makes sure that they can work in whatever location they're in. And the government has constant access to that. The government knows where everybody in the society is coming and going, and every person's what they've purchased, why they're purchasing it, whether they're moving house. This is why there is no criminal element in China, and this is also why it's so difficult for people to move out of China if they're political dissidents. If you are trying to move out, if you're a Uyghur Muslim in Xinjiang, and suddenly you start to list your things on WeChat, which is the only app that they're allowed to use. You're selling your couch, you're selling your bed, you're selling that kind of stuff. You'll get a knock from those Chinese police, and they will ask you what you're doing, and they'll find out about it. This is how to absolutely give the corporate political class the ability to have absolute control over every aspect of every individual's life. And I don't care if you're on right, left, center, what part of this you're on, unless you are literally part of the party that is about to take control, your life's going to be worse off. And it is completely validated by this person's claim, or this person's statement. Obviously, he was going through the border as a trucker. He's a Canadian trucker, and he's on Tucker Carlson, so he came through the border. These people, I don't even understand why. It's so obvious that this would happen. Once they have that information, once they have an app on your phone that you have to download, and they have a piece of information on that, why wouldn't they continue to expand that to every piece of information that you have? I'd like to turn your attention to this particular article on the gray zone. It's let's switch over here. Cloak and Dagger military intelligence outfit at center of U.S. digital vaccine passport push. Described as, quote, the most important organization you've never heard of, unquote, MITRE rakes in massive security state contracts to pioneer invasive spy tech. Now it's at the heart of a campaign to implement digital vaccine passports. This is an article by Jeremy Lafredo and Max Blumenthal at the Gray Zone. Two absolutely wonderful reporters on this specific topic. They're very, very left-wing guys, but that's not important when it comes to this. This is about everybody, especially political dissidents on either side of the aisle. While vaccine passports have been marketed as a boon to public health, promising safety, privacy, and convenience for those who have been vaccinated against COVID-19, the pivotal role as a shadowy military intelligence organization is playing in the push to implement the system in digital form has raised serious civil liberties concerns. Known as MITRE, the organization is a non-profit corporation led almost entirely by military intelligence professionals and sustained by sizable contracts with the Department of Defense, FBI, and national security sector. The effort to expand QR code vaccine passports beyond states like California and New York now revolves around a public-private partnership known as the Vaccine Credentialing Initiative, and the VCI has reserved an instrumental role in its coalition for MITRE. Described by Forbes as a cloak and dagger cloak and dagger research and development shop, unquote, that is, quote, the most important organization you've never heard of, unquote. MITRE has developed some of the most invasive surveillance technology in use by U.S. spy agencies today. Among its most novel products is a system built for the FBI which captures individuals' fingerprints from images posted on social media sites. So, one thing that I'd also like you guys to recall for my fellow pollsters or people who are just happen to be on more shadier parts of the internet where they want to make sure that you're a real person, don't post them hands. Don't post them hands, don't post the eyes. Whenever there was those old, remember the thing a couple years ago when it was like, show your first Facebook photo and show you now. Do you really think that wasn't just a way for AI to learn how to do age progression technology? You guys need to think outside of the box with things like this. Anyways, MITRE's own COVID-19 umbrella coalition includes In-Q-Tel, the venture capital arm of the Central Intelligence Agency, and Palantir, a scandal-stained private spying firm. Elizabeth Renaris, the founding director of Notre Dame and IBM's Technology Ethics Lab, has warned that as dominant technology and surveillance companies like MITRE pursue new revenue streams in healthcare and financial services, privately owned and operated ID systems with profit-maximizing business models threaten the privacy, security, and other fundamental rights of individuals and communities. Indeed, the involvement of military intelligence apparatus in the development of a digital vaccine passport system is yet another indication that behind the guise of public health concerns, the U.S. surveillance state could be due to enhance its control over an increasingly resistive population. What this is the Vaccine Credentialing Initiative is a group of companies that are coming together to agree on how to push this properly for the rest of the world. It's, of course, every organization in this is incentivized to let it go forward. The credit card agencies want to know all this, as much information about you so they're able to give better credit ratings. The social media companies buy and trade in your information. When you're typing in things about, oh, I want a new TV, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, that gets sold to these targeted ad places, which then give you advertisements, which can be very helpful, but is also incredibly invasive. There's a common story of a gentleman who was sent things about how expectant mothers should, get certain clothes and such stuff like this for his 13-year-old daughter. He went to shout at the store, and it turns out that his daughter was pregnant because social media sites recognized that she had been searching for pregnancy-related information on the internet and just started sending her this kind of stuff. Social media and the NSA already have so many different avenues into your information that it's almost unbelievable. But when we allow them to tell us that they're going to put an app onto our phone, that they're capable of accessing at all times, but it's for our safety, every single totalitarian regime's ever plans has been to make your life safer. Safety is the Trojan horse that they bring these different things into with. It's the refrain that is constantly sung by every insane leader that forces people into starvation and slavery. And I would just like to say that as we move forward into this brave new world of technology advancing totalitarian regimes, China has already perfected it, and this looks exactly like implementing the Chinese system in America. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching my video. Please like, share, subscribe as much as possible. Just go down to the link below, click share, hit the copy button, send it to one of your friends, have them take a look, because it's important that we all know exactly what we're giving up when we are putting out the public opinion that vaccine passports are actually something that we want. When we're saying that, when we're tweeting it, when we're sending it on Facebook, when we're sending it out, when we're saying it to one another at work, we are giving this authoritarian regime the mandate it needs to continue moving forward with things like this. When people are going to the actual seat of power and saying, no, we don't want this, they try their hardest possible to ignore it. And the tiniest signal in the market that says that one tiny group might want this is the only thing that they'll look at. They'll scream this is for your safety, they'll scream this is for public health reasons, and they'll scream this is that they need to round up the unvaccinated for your safety over and over and over again until we're all in digital gulags, kept away from each other and forced to interact only in the way that the government allows us to. Everybody needs to know this, so please like, share, subscribe, support me in the support links below if you're interested, and hopefully you guys have a wonderful day.